Shut up! Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. So today, as you can see by the title and the thumbnail, we are doing the history of drag. I'm gonna try my best to put this video out tomorrow. Yes, I'm filming on Wednesday and I'm going to try and put it out on Thursday. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for all your support and your love on the last few videos. I really appreciate it. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've really been enjoying making videos, editing videos. So thank you so much for supporting me. So I did film this video already, except it was a tutorial slash history of drag, but it was a flop. Like everything was just a mess. So I'm gonna redo it. Instead of this being a tutorial slash history of drag, we're gonna do this just the history of drag. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna do a face. It's gonna be like a normal standard drag makeup, just like the classic drag queens and what they did. So yeah, but the rest of it is just gonna be me in fast time, sped up with voiceover, just talking about drag. I don't think anybody asked for history of makeup or history and makeup. That's another thing, is at first when I was talking about doing this series, I was doing history of makeup. That's what I wanted to do, was talk about all the different eras in history and all the makeup that applies to it. And while I do still think that's a really cute idea and I really still want to do that, but instead of just doing the history of makeup, I'm going to do history and makeup. Every Thursday will probably be a history and makeup video, and then on Sundays will be whatever else. So this Sunday I'll be doing a drag tutorial on how to do my face. So let's get started. So as you can see, I've already blocked out my brows. I will be getting to a blocking out brows tutorial in sometime, I don't know when though. And then from this point on, I'm just gonna hand it over to my voiceover and I'm just gonna start doing my makeup. The history of drag queens is an evolution from a common theatre practice to an award-winning form of entertainment that has gained legitimacy on an international stage. Thanks largely to the success of RuPaul's Drag Race, the art form is now seen regularly on mainstream TV channels and magazine covers. But the story of drag goes back far further than Drag Race. The history of drag as an art form of entertainment dates back to Shakespearean times. In the 17th century, only men were allowed to take part in productions as they were in religious rites. So when plays included female parts, the male actors would dress as women to fill the void. So the practice of female impersonation has deep roots on the stage. It is in the theatre that the term drag is believed to have originated. When men played female roles, they would supposedly discuss how their costume dresses would drag across the floor, which is so weird. Like, why would you be like, oh, our dresses drag across the floor, let's just call this drag? Like, so strange. Well done, you guys. While the fight for LGBTQ equality continues, someone who seemed to enlighten all around him in 18th century England was Princess Seraphina. Otherwise known as gentleman's servant John Cooper, Seraphina was seen as the country's first drag queen, in that she was part of John's daily life and not just an acting role. She was a regular sight in Molly houses, the equivalent of a gay bar. Even though men could be hung at the time if found practicing in homosexual acts, there were no reports of Seraphina ever being arrested or treated with mistrust. In ancient Greece, men were playing female roles. In Shakespearean times, it was the same thing. In the kabuki tradition in Japan, in minstrel shows, in vaudeville, in burlesque, there's always been someone cross-dressing for work. Dressing as a woman, however, does not a drag queen make. Artists we would now call drag queens were chiefly forged in the 18th and 19th century, when, as gender roles became increasingly rigid, cross-dressing started acquiring a distinctly provocative identity, moving from a game of dress-up to a cutting commentary on the constructs of gender and sexuality. Actors playing female parts because there were no actresses around isn't exactly in the spirit of what we call drag today, but it was a start. It soon became a way for men, often gay men, to express a different side of themselves, over-exaggerating feminine looks, style, and body language to create a persona. As RuPaul himself says, there's more to drag than impersonating women. Ru says, I don't dress like a woman, I dress like a drag queen. So side note, drag is not just for men, it's not just for gay men. Anybody and everybody can do drag. To me, drag is an art form, it's not about female impersonation. I think that drag is like a way for people to express themselves through performance and makeup and style and fashion and things like that. So yeah, anybody can do drag. Drag is just hyper gender. So like drag kings are hyper masculine, drag queens are hyper feminine, or there are even non-binary performers who are hyper non-binary or hyper androgyny. That's what I think drag is anyway. Now let's talk about vaudeville. So drag began to take more of an individual form of entertainment as opposed to being utilized as part of an ensemble or performance when female impersonation was introduced into American culture via the genre known as vaudeville. Vaudeville performance gained traction in the early 20th century in the US, and it combines comedy, music, dance, and burlesque to create an offbeat type of live entertainment. As time went on, drag became more about the individual, and the queens built up their own fan bases. Female impersonation quickly became a facet of the vaudevillian entertainment experience. It was through vaudeville that the first official well-known drag queen in the US came to exist, named Julian Eltinge. His popularity moved beyond vaudeville, and his success earned him the title of being the highest paid actor in the world, surpassing even Charlie Chaplin at the time. Back then, performers like Eltinge fought against the homosexual panic by making clear that they were men in women's clothing, not to fool audience members. Today though, drag queens are closely linked to the queer community. Whereas many drag queens played on the fact that they were men in women's clothing, Eltinge had many fans convinced she was not a character but a genuine actress. At the end of performances, Eltinge would remove his wig and reveal his gender to the crowd, often to cries of disbelief. Hugely popular for more than 20 years, Eltinge's career was very much on an upward trajectory until variety acts fell out of favor in the 30s. While there was a tolerance, even celebration of drag and LGBT people in the USA during the 20s and the 30s, American society became more reactionary in the mid-30s amid fears surrounding sex crime, which had a negative impact on the way drag was perceived. The increasing popularity of speakeasies, where drag was welcome during the Prohibition, became known as the pansy craze. But even long after Prohibition ended, the gay bars that featured drag during this time continued to operate well into the 50s and the 60s. After the Second World War, although homosexuality was still frowned upon by society as a whole, even illegal in some cases, there were still many drag acts who broke through the negativity and had successful careers. Now let's talk about Stonewall and the ballroom culture. Oddly enough, it would be the New York Mafia and the Genovese family in particular who would covertly give the drag queens and gay community an outlet. In 1966, a member of the Genovese crime family purchased the Stonewall in Manhattan's Greenwich Village, which would then become a hub of gay culture and the epicenter of a series of riots in 1969, which resulted in galvanizing the gay community against their oppressors. At the forefront of this movement, drag queen Flawless Sabrina organized multiple pageants across the United States, which showcased drag queens much like a traditional beauty pageant would. She was arrested many times and appeared in drag in public, including while being a guest on talk shows, which was unheard of at that time. LGBTQ members of color simultaneously fostered their own havens in uptown Manhattan, in neighborhoods like Harlem and Washington Heights. It was here that the drag ball culture believed to have originated in the early 70s. Anyone who gobbled up the US series Pose in one thirsty gulp will be aware of the drag balls. These events involved owning the runway in the finest drag around in order to wow the judges and go home with a clutch of trophies. This is where the concept of the drag mother took hold. Seasoned queens would take up-and-coming drag artists under their wing to show them how to work the stage as well as their look. They often provided a home to youngsters who may be going through a difficult time in their lives, and not just to those intending to enter the drag world. This led to drag mothers becoming known as the head of their house, making them responsible for an entire drag family. Whatever the mother's surname, their drag proteges were allowed to adopt it, or even have their stage name chosen for them by their mother. Drag families featured heavily Drag families featured heavily in the 1990 drag ball documentary Paris is Burning, with the House of Extravaganza and the House of La Beja among those featured. Balls and houses were especially crucial to the gay struggle during the AIDS crisis. During the 80s, gay Americans started getting sick and dying, spreading many cases through unprotected sex. AIDS ravaged the gay community. Public health agencies' response to AIDS were fraught with homophobic and racist assumptions about queer sexual behavior, and did more to increase stigma around homosexuality than to stop the AIDS crisis. In turn, some houses, organized as prevention houses, whose house mothers educated their offspring about safe sex and provided healing for deep emotional trauma of those living with AIDS. Drag queens and queer spaces provided the queer community what straight society would not: protection, love, and care. The Stonewall Riot of 1969 saw drag queens, most notably Marsha P. Johnson, protest against police raids on gay bars in New York City, and led to the creation of the Gay Liberation Front. The fight for acceptance and equality grew in profile over the 70s and the 80s. Marsha was among the first drag queens to frequent Greenwich Village's Stonewall Inn after the famous gay bar began admitting women and drag rather than just gay men. She was a central figure in the Stonewall uprising. The event is widely regarded as a significant catalyst in the gay liberation movement and a historic milestone in the battle for LGBTQ rights in the US. Soon after the Stonewall uprising, Marsha became a member of the Gay Liberation Front. She was among the trailblazers who took part in the first Christopher Street Liberation Pride Rally in June 1970. The rally marked the first anniversary of the Stonewall uprising, out of which the annual commemoration of Pride Month grew. Speaking in a 1972 interview, Marsha said that she wanted to see gay people liberated and free and have equal rights that other people have in America. That positive representation gradually bled into the mainstream. The famed Divine appeared in many movies by the director John Waters, which had crossover success. Divine played Edna Turnblad in the original version of Hairspray, and by the early 90s, RuPaul was on the cusp of global fame, combining a drag persona with a recording career that included a duet with Elton John. From that point on, drag culture slowly seemed to fold into mainstream society, with such drag and gender-bending performances by actor Tim Curry in 1975's Rocky Horror Picture Show and the aesthetic stylings of musician David Bowie. The 80s saw even greater experimentation with drag and gender bending in music and film through artists such as Boy George and Pete Burns. Then, the 1980s ushered in a more alternate vibe embodied by the scene in New York and marked a turning point in drag. The edgy, vulgar, playful ethos of RuPaul and modern drag queens grew out of Wigstock. After Wigstock, RuPaul became a star in the drag community. By the 90s, the world was ready to make the drag queen more mainstream than ever before. Indeed, the drag queen at the helm of this acceptance was none other than RuPaul Charles, who would change the history of drag in the modern age. The modern drag movement, spurred by RuPaul, seeks to defy and deconstruct expectations of normal. To be a drag queen is to fly your freak flag, to live your life out loud, and to not let other people dictate normal or edit yourself so that you fit in with other people. So it's very much a big, bold, brave statement of individuality. There's nothing like watching Tandy Iman Dupree drop from a ceiling. Even though the footage is grainy, the feeling that this performance conjures of prideful elation, of absolute awe, pierces through. It is quintessentially drag. In 2009, RuPaul premiered his reality TV competition series, RuPaul's Drag Race. The show has since become a popular phenomenon, and the drag queen has entered the mainstream once again, and this time, it seems like they're here to stay. Drag Race's mix of challenges, costume creation, skits, and impersonations has made it appointment television for a surprisingly diverse audience. Today, it is safe to say that drag has gone mainstream, and it's not just RuPaul's Drag Race. For instance, there's Pose, and if you didn't know, there's another competition series, the only real competition to Drag Race at the moment, which is Dragula. So if you haven't watched Dragula, go watch it. Queens are taking over YouTube and Instagram and getting Netflix specials, but some of the past eras have survived. Some commentators have described how queens of color on Drag Race receive little praise compared to their white counterparts, as well as the way in which a number of contestants have been disproportionately targeted by internet trolls due to their ethnicity. Shangela, who is a former Drag Race contestant and icon, used drag to think about her sexuality. This is what Shangela said: "Becoming a drag entertainer and really embracing that helped me to embrace who I was as a gay person even more. It's kind of like another coming out almost. To walk into a room, you learn how to let go of those feelings of, I need to please others. You just get this heightened sense of confidence. Yet, women who dress as drag queens or kings aren't having the same cultural moment. Maya Durham performs as a drag king in LA under the name Malcolm Ecstasy, and she wants to see the drag movement welcome more women. She thinks that the lack of a place for women is related to gender norms and misogyny, and hopes the movement will come to incorporate drag kings. I don't want to see drag queens knocked down from the level they're at. I want to see kings rise to the same level, Durham says. I think that's what happens when drag starts to go mainstream. All of a sudden you're watching The View, and there are 3 drag queens on there, and it's not a joke. Yes, we're here, we're queer, and you better deal with it, because we aren't going anywhere. Here's why drag is important to the makeup community and the makeup industry. If you look up cut crease tutorial, you'll see millions of faces of beauty vloggers that are different, but the same. A uniform airbrush makeup look has become the new normal. Thick ombre block brows, heavily contoured cheeks, blinding highlighter, and fluttering eyelashes. Some call it Instagram makeup, some call it a beat face. What it really is decades of quiet but powerful influence from the drag community. I don't think the drag community gets the credit they deserve for the trends that are happening in makeup. So many trends started within the drag community. I would love to see drag get more recognition for it. I think that we're moving into a moment where people are digging a little deeper, and they're like, where did that come from? Drag queens are starting to get some recognition, but I feel like it's way overdue. Before YouTube, before Instagram, and before influencers, now common knowledge makeup techniques like contouring and baking were used by drag queens in the dressing rooms of clubs. They were passed on by word of mouth, taught either by peers or drag mothers. Where do you think contouring, baking, and highlighting came from? Many have linked the trend to Kim Kardashian, who in 2012 posted a viral photo of her mid-contouring. Her trademark look inspired thousands of Kardashian-inspired tutorials, and a chain reaction started among top beauty bloggers competing for views and likes. Drag Race should drive us to recommit to queerness, both in what the show's success includes and excludes. We should remain uncompromisingly devoted to the queer struggle and its interlocked causes of racial, gender, and class justice. With this squarely in mind, we can recuperate something deeply meaningful in today's drag sparkle and sequence. Combined, we find queerness at its most defined, a passionate celebration of our pleasure and our rage. The world is filled with rigid and deeply unsatisfying games of marriage, heterosexuality, and gender. One way to win is to laugh at them. Tandy falls from the ceiling and the world shrieks with delight. She owns everything, and so do we. This is drag. Okay, so there I am, done. My eyebrows are not the best when it comes to blocking out, so if you do see texture there, I'm not going to put on mascara. I feel like it's a waste at the moment, because I mean, once this is done, I'm just going to take this off. So I'm not going to put on mascara, I'm not putting on lashes, I'm just going to leave it like this. Imagine it with lashes. Imagine me in a wig and a gown for a pageant. So yeah, that's the end of this video. If you are interested in the history of drag and stuff like that, I encourage you to go out and do more research. If you're interested in the ballroom culture, do more research, or let me know and I'll make a video about it. Go watch Pose, go watch Paris is Burning, go watch Priscilla, Queen of the Desert. There's like tons of movies that are about drag queens and the ballroom culture and Stonewall that you can go watch to educate yourself more on this topic. I tried to cover most of the bases with this video. I probably did forget a few things. I probably forgot a lot of things actually, but like I said, if you want more, I can do more. I can do another history video where I go more into depth about a certain part of the history of drag if you want that. And I encourage you, if you've never tried to do a drag makeup look before, do it. It's really fun and you end up looking really beautiful at the end. I mean, hello. So yeah, that's the end of this one. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great morning, evening, or night, and I can't wait to see you on Sunday where I'll be giving you guys a tutorial on how to do my drag face, this face over here. Have a great morning or evening or night, and I can't wait to see you next time. Bye.